The room went quiet when I placed the pen on the table. Well, not the whole room. The kids kept laughing near the pool, and her side of the family was too busy smiling at each other like it was all some great victory. But there was a thin ripple of silence right around the table where I sat, where I had just raised a toast. A toast to my son. The boy I'd coached through asthma attacks, scraped knees, multiplication tables, his first heartbreak. The same boy who now stood 5 feet away from me, adjusting the sleeve of his new blazer like he couldn't get out of my shadow fast enough. To the young man I've raised for 17 years, I said, glass raised. A simple, polite nod to time spent. Not love bombing, not clinging, just acknowledging. He didn't even turn his head. Instead, he faced the guests, held up his glass like a showman. I'm done with Daniels. I'm taking the last name of someone I actually admire. Laughter. A few raised brows. His mother let out this delighted little gasp like she hadn't rehearsed the line with him 10 times in the mirror. Then the new man, the upgraded model, apparently, leaned over and tapped glasses with him. Welcome to the family, for real now, he said, smiling like a wolf who just convinced the flock he was a shepherd. That's when I took out the envelope. Sealed, official, notarized. Everyone assumed I'd come here with a last-ditch plea. That I'd beg, cry, cause a scene. Instead, I handed it to Eric and said, "You want to go? Go all the way." And I signed. The pen didn't hesitate. Not once. His mother looked at me, surprised. Maybe a little smug. Maybe thinking, finally, he gets it. He knows his place now. But she didn't notice how long I kept my hand on the table afterward. Still, not shaking, just thinking. It was like watching someone gleefully jump off a ledge, not realizing the safety net had been removed years ago. Look, I don't blame anyone who listens to stories like this without clicking that little subscribe button. Most people want the drama and move on. But if you're one of the folks who's still with me, who actually gives a damn about stories that don't just explode, but burn slow and deep, hit that button. It fuels the people behind this. And trust me, what comes next? You'll want to be there for that. Because what they didn't realize, not the smug new husband, not my suddenly enlightened son, not even the woman who used to lie beside me and call it love, was that Daniels wasn't just a name. They thought they were taking a new identity. A cleaner slate. A man with a fancier house, flashier smile, and deeper pockets. What they actually did was sign away the key to a vault they never even knew existed. I didn't flinch, didn't raise my voice, just sat there with that same polite smile and let them toast each other like they'd won something. 17 years of birthdays, doctor's appointments, science projects, and teaching him to drive. Erased in one photo op. He even wore the new blazer that day, monogrammed with the other man's initials. Had the nerve to puff his chest like he'd earned it. Like all those nights I stayed up after double shifts, helping him cram for exams, were somehow less real than the 6 months of yacht trips and private lessons the new guy threw at him. You know what? Let him have the yacht. Let them all sip champagne on the deck while the ship slowly takes on water. Because as they grinned, as cameras clicked and glasses clinked, I wasn't mourning a name. I was triggering a clause. And that clause was older than any of them. Older than me. And once activated, it couldn't be reversed. So yeah, I smiled. Toasted him. Signed the papers. Then I went home, opened the leather-bound trust binder my grandfather left me, the one no one ever bothered to ask about, and flipped straight to Provision 12C. Clause title: Inheritance rights tied to legal name. Subsection: Irrevocable upon court-approved name change and adoption. They thought I was just a man letting go. But I wasn't. I was the lock. And they had just thrown away the only key. By midnight, the blazer was already on Instagram. Eric had posted it himself. 3 filtered angles, front and back, with that stitched monogram front and center like a badge of honor. The caption? Finally a last name that means something. 72 likes in under an hour. His mother commented with a heart emoji. The new husband added, "Proud to have you as my son." They looked so proud of themselves, so self-congratulatory, like they'd just rewritten history. Like the name Daniels was some dusty coat he could toss aside for a sleeker one, shinier, newer, easier to pronounce at cocktail parties. I didn't leave a comment. Instead, I poured a glass of the rye my grandfather used to keep in the locked cabinet, the one he'd only opened for milestones. I sipped it slowly, then pulled down the thick, leather-bound binder from the top shelf of my study closet. Dust-covered. Heavy. Inside was the Daniels family trust, exactly as he'd left it. I flipped past the dedication, the corporate charter, the asset list, until I reached the clauses. Page 43. Provision 12C. Highlighted in faded yellow ink from decades ago. It was written in the kind of legalese that makes most people's eyes glaze over, but I'd read it so many times, I could practically recite it. Provision 12C. Eligibility for disbursement, voting rights, directorship, and property privileges shall be limited to verified bloodline members retaining legal use of the Daniels surname. In the event of formal, court-recognized disassociation via name change or adoption, such privileges are considered irrevocably forfeit. No reinstatement clause shall apply. Most people thought the wealth in our family was passive. Land, stock, a couple dusty buildings in Virginia. But what they never understood is that it wasn't about the stuff. It was about the structure, the gate, the key. And now, my son had handed his key to a man who didn't even know the damn gate existed. I picked up the phone and dialed. Not the kind of number you keep in your cell. This one was from memory, engraved there since the day I was added to the trust as a secondary signatory. 3 rings. Then, Bernstein, Cooper, and Trammell. After hours line. This is Richard Daniels. I need to speak to Gerald Cooper. Pause. Then, one moment, Mr. Daniels. When Gerald's voice came on, it hadn't aged a day. Richard, he said, like he already knew why I was calling. I need you to activate Provision 12C, I said. Effective immediately. Name disassociation has occurred. He didn't ask for proof. He didn't sound surprised. Is the change finalized by court or still pending? They're filing it this week. I co-signed today. Then we'll enter the 72-hour lockout protocol, he said. Pending receipt of the court confirmation, the trustees will suspend Eric Daniels' access to all disbursements and privileges. Upon verification, we'll file the permanent revision. I took a slow breath. And the properties? Same protocol. Locks and codes can be updated within a week. Voting rights suspended. Foundation board notified. Good, I said. File the revision within the week. Yes, Mr. Daniels. It will be done. There was no ceremony. No judgment in his voice. Just quiet precision. I hung up and looked again at the Instagram post. They'd tagged the new husband's account. It was full of yacht photos, cigars, gold-plated nonsense. A man who thought influence came from loudness. He'd just won a teenage boy's name. A signature. An inheritance of ego. What he didn't know was that in the background, the real empire was being shifted out from under them. Not loudly. Not with lawyers and courtrooms and custody battles. Just ink on old paper. Eric had made a statement. I made a revision. And when that revision was finalized, my son wouldn't just lose access to wealth, he'd vanish from it. As if he'd never been part of it at all. Let them toast their new identity. Let them pose for matching family portraits. But the real legacy? It was already locking them out. The court date came faster than I expected. Apparently, when your new husband has connections and your lawyer is better at golf than litigation, bureaucracy moves with surprising speed. The hearing was short. 10 minutes, maybe. They filed it as a voluntary adult adoption. No objections. I wasn't even asked to attend. Just a clerk reading names, a gavel tap, and a new identity handed out like a party favor. When the confirmation letter came in the mail, I read it twice. Eric James Daniels was now legally Eric James Ashcroft. The Daniels name was no longer part of his record. Not hyphenated. Not retained for sentimental reasons. Gone. Like it had never existed. The envelope was crisp, celebratory in tone. Like they'd sent out graduation announcements. Later that afternoon, she sent me the photo. No message. Just the image. Him standing in front of their fireplace, arms crossed, grinning. The blazer again, navy with gold trim. But this time the embroidery was clear as day. Ashcroft. Bold script over the left breast pocket. An emblem above it, probably custom made. They'd turned him into a mascot. Her caption was pasted below like a bumper sticker slapped on a Porsche. A boy finally has a father he can be proud of. No emojis. Just that line. I didn't reply. Neither did anyone else. I checked. No likes. No comments. The silence felt louder than anything I could have said. Instead, I saved the photo. Not out of sentiment. It was documentation now. Then I walked to my filing cabinet, opened the top drawer, and pulled out the envelope I'd prepped a week ago. Inside was a single-page letter addressed to the Daniels Trust Administrator, printed on my personal letterhead, dated and signed. A formal notice of disassociation, triggered by court-certified name change and legal adoption. I sealed the envelope. Handwritten across the front in blue ink, per Provision 12C, activation confirmed. I didn't rush to the mailbox. I placed it carefully in the outgoing tray for the courier pickup. No ceremony, just a quiet acknowledgement. My son, my legal son, no longer existed under our name. The trust would process it within 72 hours. His name would be struck from every document, every file, every disbursement chart, property registry, and legacy clause. All future references to the Daniels lineage would exclude him. That was the thing none of them understood. You can shame a man publicly. You can erase his photos from your social media. But when you erase a name from a legal structure built over generations, that's not drama. That's deletion. They had won the spotlight, the temporary applause, the digital parade of new beginnings. But I'd taken something quieter, permanent. Eric could wear that new blazer to galas and fundraisers all he liked. He could sign autographs with his shiny new name and call another man dad on Father's Day. But the Daniels Trust? That thing didn't care about feelings. It cared about facts, legal names, verified bloodlines. And now, as far as it was concerned, he was gone. Just like that. One signature, one photo, one courier envelope. They thought they were crafting a legacy, but I was already printing the footnote that would erase theirs. The first letter arrived 3 weeks later, tucked between a pizza coupon and a catalog from a luxury mattress company. It came in a plain envelope with a school crest stamped in black. Eric tore it open in the kitchen while his mother blended something overpriced and green in the Vitamix. I imagine he expected a congratulations, or at least a schedule packet. Instead, he stood there, staring at a single paragraph for nearly a full minute. Due to changes in eligibility status, we regret to inform you that your application for the Daniels Lineage Grant has been disqualified. Our scholarships are bound by the founding trust criteria, which specifies direct legal descent and verified surname. You may reapply under general merit-based aid next cycle. He read it again, then again. He didn't say anything, just placed it on the counter and went upstairs. His mother didn't even glance at it until later that evening. She laughed when she read it. Not cruelly, just lightly, like it was a clerical hiccup. "We'll figure something out," she said, waving the letter like a grocery list. "They probably haven't updated your file." But 2 days later, another letter came. This one from the university's housing office. It included a refund check and a short, soulless explanation. Per terms of the Daniels estate partnership, housing subsidies are no longer applicable. As your eligibility has changed, your assigned dorm is being reallocated. If you wish to reapply for general housing, please do so by August 12th. No apology. No explanation beyond those 3 sentences. The check was for $1,200. Eric held it in his hand like it might disintegrate. He didn't yell, didn't storm off. He just sat in the living room staring out the window while his stepfather jabbered on about a networking brunch. Then he made the call. He dug up the contact from an old email thread, one I'd included him on years ago, back when I was trying to prepare him for his role in the trust. It was supposed to be temporary access, but I'd left it open. Maybe part of me hoped he'd come around eventually, that he'd want to understand what he was set to inherit. He didn't back then. Now, he was desperate. "Hi. Yes, this is Eric. Daniels. No, sorry, Eric Ashcroft now. I think there's been a mistake with my trust access. I was receiving aid from the Daniels Foundation, and..." A pause. "I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?" Another pause. His face started to go pale. "But my father's Richard Daniels. That has to count. I didn't know it would affect." He stood up, started pacing. "Is there any way to..." "No, I wasn't aware of that clause." Yes, I legally changed my name. Yes, I signed the papers." The voice on the other end must have said something final, because he suddenly stopped mid-sentence, then nodded to no one and said, "I understand," before quietly ending the call. He didn't speak for hours. That night, his mother tried to comfort him. "It's all political," she said. "It's the old guard punishing you for breaking tradition. We don't need them." But something in her tone had shifted. Her eyes darted as she scrolled through her phone, quietly typing, searching. Maybe she was texting that smug lawyer friend of hers, or maybe she was already Googling legacy trust reversal. But she wasn't smiling anymore, and neither was Eric. They thought the silence was just the pause before applause. What they didn't realize was that it was paperwork doing what vengeance never could, without sound, without smoke. Just denial after denial, quietly unspooling a future they thought was guaranteed. By Friday, his email inbox had 6 rejections. One from a business internship affiliated with the Daniels Foundation. Another from a mentorship program his cousin used to run. The rest? Just polite words and closed doors. He printed them. All of them. Lined them up on the kitchen table like a failed experiment. The boy who thought a name was just branding was now watching that brand collapse under him. And his mother? She started checking the mail with a little more hesitation. The kind of woman who once threw out IRS letters unopened now read every envelope with surgical precision. But it was already too late. The game board had shifted, and they were playing with pieces that no longer existed. The knock wasn't gentle. It was the kind of knock that makes picture frames rattle and small dogs panic. She opened the door expecting a delivery. Maybe the organic gift basket she'd ordered for her Pilates instructor's birthday. What she got instead was her father, trembling, sweating through his wool blazer despite the 70-degree breeze, and gripping a thick envelope like it had personally insulted him. Without waiting for an invitation, he stepped inside. "Where is he?" he barked, eyes darting past her. "Who?" "Eric." She flinched. "He's upstairs." "What?" But he was already walking past her. Not storming exactly, just moving like a man with a countdown ticking in his head. Like each step was 1 second closer to a detonation. He stopped in the middle of the kitchen, set the envelope down on the island counter, and pointed at it like it was a murder weapon. "Is this true?" She didn't move. "What are you talking about?" He didn't answer. Just opened the envelope with shaking hands, pulled out a document marked with the Daniels Trust seal, and slapped it flat on the counter. "You let the boy change his name?" he said, his voice trembling now with something worse than anger, fear. Her mouth opened, then closed. He leaned in, close enough that she could see the broken capillaries on his cheeks. "Did you even read what it meant?" She straightened, crossed her arms. "It's just a name," she said, trying to sound calm, dismissive. He wanted to feel like part of a family. That name never meant anything to him. "No," her father said, voice low now. "It's not just a name. It's the lock." He picked up the document again and held it to her face like scripture. "And you just threw away the only key." She blinked. "I don't. You should have called me," he snapped. "Before you filed that paperwork. Before you put on that ridiculous ceremony. Before you handed him over like some show dog at a county fair." His voice cracked. "Your grandfather and I spent 40 years building the trust structure. You think those properties in Vermont just exist because your ex-husband liked antique furniture? You think the Daniels Foundation just funds scholarships out of sentiment?" "I didn't know," she said, weakly now. "Of course you didn't. You never asked." Eric came down the stairs just in time to catch the tail end of that sentence. He paused. "What's going on?" His grandfather looked at him, and something in his face changed. A twitch in the jaw. A brief, unbearable silence. "You did it," the old man whispered. "You actually did it." Eric frowned. "Did what?" "You signed the adoption papers. Took his name." "Yeah," Eric said slowly. So. His grandfather's laugh was short, joyless. "Do you understand what you gave up?" Eric shrugged. "I don't care about some dusty old trust fund. That legacy never did anything for me. It paid for your school. I earned that." "No," he said, stepping forward, eyes blazing again. "You inherited it. You were born into a system that opened doors for you before you could even spell your name. And you just closed all of them because you wanted a different monogram on your jacket. I chose a better man to be my father," Eric snapped. The silence that followed that sentence could have sucked the air out of the room. His grandfather's hands trembled as he folded the document back into the envelope. But this time, there was no fury in his movement, just finality. "Then may he provide for you," the old man said, barely above a whisper. "Because the Daniels name won't." He turned back to his daughter. "You didn't just erase his surname. You revoked his future. And for what?" A moment of applause from a man who never built anything. She couldn't look him in the eye. The door clicked shut behind him a moment later. No goodbye, no hug, no parting words of advice. Just the quiet knowledge that the family vault wasn't just closed, it was sealed. And the people on the wrong side of that seal were only now realizing they'd never even asked what it was guarding. They didn't panic immediately. That would have required self-awareness. What came first was denial, an arrogant assumption that this was just a hiccup, a technical oversight. One call to the right cousin, one dinner with the right aunt, and it'd all be cleared up. Names don't matter that much, she repeated to herself while scrolling through her contacts. Not when we're family. She started with her older brother. He lived in Maine, worked as a regional director for one of the Daniels-owned logistics branches. He'd always liked Eric. Sent birthday cards. Smoked cigars with Richard during holidays back when they all pretended to like each other. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, I need a favor," she said. Silence. "Do you know what's going on with the trust?" "Eric's getting blocked from everything. Scholarships, housing." He interrupted, voice tight. "It's out of my hands." "What does that mean?" "You're on the advisory council." He cut in. "Until I got a notice 2 weeks ago informing me that continuing to correspond about internal Daniels affairs with non-named individuals could compromise my seat." Her jaw tightened. "He's your nephew." He said, and hung up. She stood frozen in the kitchen for a long time, phone still at her ear, until Eric wandered in with his laptop. "Mom, the Daniels Foundation website," he said. "My name's gone." "What do you mean gone?" He turned the screen to her. The About Us section once had a paragraph highlighting Eric J. Daniels, fourth-generation legacy member, class of 2025. Gone. Completely scrubbed. Not even archived in the footer blurbs. In its place, positioned to be reassigned pending eligibility confirmation. Her face tightened. "Let's call Liza," she muttered. Liza, her cousin, worked PR for the Daniels Education Trust. Always bragged about her behind-the-scenes influence. The call rang. Then voicemail. They drove to the Daniels estate the next morning. Long, quiet ride. Neither said much. The moment they pulled up, she noticed something was different. Not just the silence, that had been normal over the past few years, but the look of the place. Empty. Dead. No valet. No staff at the security booth. The gates were locked and chained, not just electronically sealed, but physically bolted. A new sign was posted. Private property. Access by written invitation only. Daniels Holdings, LLC. Eric leaned out of the car window, confused. "Where's Robert? He always opened for us." She pressed the intercom button. No answer. Tried again. Nothing. Then she checked her email, scrolling through old invitations to board events, birthdays, and charity luncheons. All from addresses that now bounced back with auto-replies. Contact no longer active. They didn't even try to go around the gate. It was pointless. That afternoon, the final blow landed. She received the agenda for the quarterly Daniels Family Holdings meeting. Eric had held a non-voting observer seat since age 16, a developmental chair gifted to descendants as prep for future stewardship. His name was gone. Not replaced. Just vacant. Line 7. Developmental seat. Pending assignment upon next eligible bloodline member reaching majority. 17 years. Wiped like a dry erase board. Eric sat on the porch that night, knees pulled up to his chest. No phone. No music, no distractions. Just silence. "Do you think," he asked finally, "they'd let me change it back?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. Because deep down, she already knew what the lawyer would say. A notarized name change was reversible, but a trust disassociation filed under Provision 12C, that was a one-way lock. A family name wasn't just a label. It was a passport, a vault key, a legacy ID badge, and they traded it for a last name that looked good on Instagram. Now, every call they made went unanswered. Every connection they assumed would bend, held firm. Every door they once opened with ease, closed, and locked from the inside. It arrived in a plain white courier envelope. No logo, no return address, just weight. Thick, heavier than it looked, like it carried something more than paper. The kind of envelope that didn't whisper delivery. It declared verdict. Eric found it on the porch first. He brought it inside and dropped it on the kitchen counter like it might bite. His mother looked up from her laptop, where she'd been digging through forums trying to find loopholes, second opinions, or even rumors about Provision 12C. The envelope didn't need an introduction. She slid it open carefully. No words passed between them. Inside, stacked neatly, no creases, no smudges. First, the adoption confirmation document. The one she had so proudly pushed through. Her signature. Eric's signature. The court seal. Legal proof that the boy who once carried the Daniels name had been willingly, formally, relocated into someone else's lineage. The timestamp in the top right corner matched the exact day of that stupid backyard celebration. Next came the letter from the Daniels Trust, printed on cream stock paper. Heavy embossment. Impeccably typeset. "Dear Eric James Ashcroft, this correspondence serves as formal confirmation of your disassociation from the Daniels Trust per Provision 12C, activated upon legal name change and voluntary adoption. All entitlements, rights, privileges, and legacy assignments linked to the Daniels surname have been irrevocably terminated. This action is final. As per trust protocols, future reinstatement requests will not be accepted. We wish you well in your future endeavors." No salutation. No signature. Just the trust's embossed seal at the bottom, like a period slamming shut. Then came the list. Typed. Bulleted. Brutal. Revoked. Academic scholarships, 2. Revoked. Travel grant. Denmark study abroad, 2025. Revoked. Voting observer seat, Daniels Holdings. Revoked. Legacy access to Daniels family archives. Revoked. Inheritance placeholder allocation, disbursed to next eligible descendant. Revoked. Emergency medical coverage. Revoked. Daniels Education Fellowship nomination, class of 2026. Revoked. access to Daniel's lodge, Vermont estate. Revoked, estate housing privilege during college semesters. There were 14 more items on the page. She didn't finish reading. Her eyes blurred somewhere around. Revoked, private internship placement, Daniel's energy. Eric just stared. And then finally, at the bottom of the envelope, folded neatly like an afterthought, was the note. Handwritten, on a small ivory card. 5 words. You asked to leave. I simply held the door. She read it twice. Her hands trembled. Not with rage, but realization. All her speeches, he deserves better. You never supported him emotionally. This family legacy is toxic. A fresh start will heal everything. Every rationalization, every smug little dig at Richard over brunch, over text, behind his back, condensed into a single gesture. And answered, completely, with 5 words. Eric didn't speak. Didn't cry. Didn't protest. He just folded the note and walked to his room. The door didn't slam. It clicked shut gently, like he was afraid even the walls might echo this mistake forever. She sat there long after he left the room, staring at the adoption form. Not because she was proud of it, not anymore, but because she suddenly understood something she hadn't grasped until now. They weren't disinvited from the legacy. They'd signed it away, willingly. There would be no dramatic confrontation, no final plea. No, if you apologize, maybe we can talk. This wasn't a feud. It was a seal, and it had already been pressed into the parchment. The funeral was for Richard's aunt, Eric's great-aunt, technically, though he'd always called her Aunt May. She used to sneak him sugar cubes when his mother wasn't looking, let him fall asleep on her floral sofa during long family lunches, gave him a monogrammed leather-bound journal when he turned 13 and whispered, "Your name is older than all of us. Treat it like gold." He never wrote a single word in that journal. Still, he showed up, pressed slacks, black tie, hair combed, posture like a soldier reporting for duty. His mother had stayed home, claiming exhaustion. But Eric came alone, gripping a folded sympathy card in one hand, an old photo in the other. Him at 7, May laughing beside him, both of them covered in frosting from a cake they'd accidentally destroyed. But the moment he stepped onto the cemetery lawn, he knew. The shift wasn't subtle. Eyes turned, but not in recognition. A few nodded politely. Strangers, probably. Hired ushers or extended in-laws who didn't know what name he carried now. But the family? They looked past him. He spotted 2 cousins near the front. Men who once tackled him into pool chairs and passed him cigars on New Year's. One of them met his gaze, hesitated, then adjusted his sunglasses and looked away. The other physically turned his back. Eric approached the 3rd row, where he'd always sat with the other junior family members. The woman there, the Daniels matriarch's niece, offered a tight smile and gestured toward the lawn behind the chairs. "I think the reserved seats are for, well, you know, family." She said it gently, almost kindly, like she was doing him a favor by keeping up appearances. He stood frozen, sympathy card still in hand. Then a staff photographer passed by, arranging the flower arch, the pews, the umbrellas for the sun. One by one, he called for people, immediate family here, legacy cousins there, direct descendants up front. Eric wasn't called. He stepped closer anyway. "I was May's godson," he offered. The photographer looked at his clipboard. "Name? Eric Daniels," he said out of reflex, then winced. "Sorry, Ashcroft," he corrected. The photographer blinked. "I don't see either name on the list," he said, already turning back. That was the moment. Not the silence. Not the exclusion. The clipboard. The list. The absence. Eric stepped back. Later, when the group photo was posted online, he zoomed in frame by frame, scanning for even a glimpse of himself in the crowd. Nothing. Not even a blur of his sleeve. That night, he logged into his university portal. He had applied for a competitive mentorship, an opportunity he'd been encouraged to pursue since sophomore year. His mentor, Mr. Krell, was a former Daniels Holdings board member turned professor who once called Eric a natural heir to quiet power. Eric clicked into the portal. The application now read, "Withdrawn." He checked his email. There it was. Subject, update to recommendation status. Body, "Dear Eric, after reviewing recent developments regarding your eligibility, I've decided to rescind my recommendation for the Daniels Leadership Mentorship. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors." No greeting. No sign-off. Just another door closing. He didn't tell his mother. He didn't tell anyone. He walked outside and sat on the porch of their too-new house in their too-perfect neighborhood, surrounded by homes filled with people who thought a trust was just a fund and a name was just branding. The Daniels name, which had once felt like a cage, now loomed above him like a fortress. He'd thrown away the only passcode he had to get back inside. He thought freedom would feel like open air, but it felt like exile. And every echo of that name, on bronze plaques, on fundraisers, on dedications at events he once attended, reminded him that legacy wasn't inherited. It was carried, and he had dropped it. No one noticed he was gone. No one offered him a seat. The photo would be framed, hung somewhere in the estate he could no longer enter. And he'd be the footnote that never got written. He found me folding blankets in the supply closet of a downtown shelter on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I heard his voice before I saw him, hesitant, strained, like he was rehearsing the apology even as it was falling apart in real time. Dad, Richard. I didn't look up. Not right away. There were 8 wool blankets left to sort, and the new ones always shed. You have to shake them out before folding, or they'll clog the dryers. Practical things. Grounding things. Easier than whatever emotional script he was about to read from. I didn't know it meant all this, he said. Still, I didn't speak. The only sound in the room was the hum of the industrial dryer behind me, and the way his sneakers squeaked nervously against the vinyl floor. He exhaled. I thought it was just a name. I finally looked up. He looked older. Not aged exactly, just hollow. Like some part of him had been quietly scooped out and never refilled. You thought wrong, I said. He stepped forward, trying to close the distance like that would matter now. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I folded the blanket and set it on the stack. That's the thing, Eric. It was never about hurting me. You thought you were choosing something better. You looked at everything we built, all the quiet, boring legacy stuff, and you thought, this doesn't matter. Not compared to a man with a nicer boat and flashier teeth. His face reddened. It's not like that. No, I asked, finally turning to face him fully. You stood at your birthday party and told the world you were done being a Daniels. You lifted a glass and toasted your mother's new husband like I was just the temporary placeholder. And then you signed it. Legally. Not as a kid. Not as a minor. I was 17. You were 17 and 11 months. And the court granted it because they saw what I saw. A young man fully aware of his choice. He swallowed. I didn't know about the trust. About Provision 12C. About what I'd lose. You didn't ask. That stopped him. You didn't ask, I repeated. You didn't ask what the name carried, or what doors it opened, or who would be impacted if you dropped it. You were so desperate to belong to something else that you never paused to consider what you were walking away from. He looked like he wanted to scream. Or cry. Or both. I was trying to belong, he whispered. I just wanted to feel chosen. You were chosen the day I carried you into the ER with a 104-degree fever and didn't leave your side for 36 hours, I said. You were chosen every time I said no to overtime so I could help with your homework. You were chosen when I put your name on that trust. But you couldn't see it because it wasn't loud enough. Wasn't flashy enough. Wasn't new. I'm sorry, he said. I nodded once, then stepped past him, walking toward the hallway. Wait, he reached out. I stopped, not turning around, just letting the words fall where they needed to. You made your choice, I said. Pride blinded you, and your mother helped you sharpen the blade. I thought there'd be a way back. There isn't. Silence again. Then, softer, so that's it. That's it. I walked away. Slowly. Silently. Not with anger. Not even with pain anymore. Just finality. Behind me, I heard nothing. No footsteps. No pleading. Just the sound of a boy. No. A man. Standing alone in a room he could no longer belong to. He'd expected a door to crack open. Instead, he found a wall. And on the other side, a legacy that had kept moving without him. The ballroom was quiet, respectfully so, as the first notes of the string quartet filled the space. Velvet curtains drawn, crystal glasses aligned in perfect symmetry, oil portraits of past founders casting their silent approval from the walls. No cameras, no press, just lineage. It was the Daniels Foundation's annual dinner, an event not advertised publicly but always remembered within. Each year, descendants gathered to renew, reflect, and, more recently, adapt. The invite this year had a new line added to the bottom in subtle italics. Attendance restricted to verified surname holders. That alone had caused a ripple. Some cousins married out and kept their names. Others didn't. One guest had arrived at the gate with a hyphenated ID and been turned away, politely, firmly, irrevocably. Inside, the air buzzed not with drama, but preservation. It was less about nostalgia and more about maintenance, keeping the scaffolding of a century-old legacy free of rot. Dinner was brief. No long-winded toasts. No self-congratulation. But after the third course, a hush fell. A new screen descended from the ceiling, the Daniels seal glowing softly on the fabric. From the stage, the chairwoman of the foundation stood and addressed the room. This year, the board is proud to announce the creation of a new initiative, she said. A grant that honors not just talent, but stewardship. Legacy isn't just what we inherit. It's what we're willing to uphold. She tapped the screen behind her. The text appeared in bold serif font. The Legacy Stewardship Grant. Awarded annually to a direct descendant bearing the Daniels surname who demonstrates exceptional commitment to community, history, and generational accountability. Gasps weren't allowed here, but you could feel the pause. A subtle shift in energy. A murmur. People glancing discreetly around the room, mentally checking family trees. And then Richard stood. No flourish. No drama. Just a quiet rise from his seat at the table nearest the stage. He didn't go to the podium. He simply turned toward the crowd and spoke. No microphone. He didn't need one. Some things you pass down, he said. Stories. Homes. Land. His eyes scanned the room. Not for drama, not for effect, but for clarity. Some things, though, he continued, you protect. Because the world doesn't know their value. Not yet. And if you don't protect them, they disappear. He looked at no one and everyone all at once. That's what this name is. Not a brand. Not a title. A responsibility. He nodded once. Sat back down. No applause immediately. Just stillness. Then a single clap. Then two. Then the wave of it. Earned, quiet, complete. Eric wasn't there. His name wasn't printed on the program. He wasn't mentioned in the year in review. Not even as an error to be corrected. To that room, to that history, he no longer existed. And outside, in a city that didn't know what had just taken place, a young man with a new name stood in front of a locked gate months too late to understand what he'd surrendered. But inside, the Daniels legacy moved forward. Not vengeful, not bitter, just clean, quiet, and forever out of reach.